What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 660 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week, which we didn't even know was going to happen because of Skype and OBS and the world itself falling apart. Those cats and dogs, we talk about once in a while, raining from the sky, bunch of things. It's one of those years. I'm Tony Meiko. In a mood today, as you can tell. I'm joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hello, I'm still alive.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
They are going to keep me sane throughout this podcast. Hopefully so. And hopefully everybody listening is not having the day that I'm having. But if you are, maybe we'll give you a little bit of a reprieve here. And as we go along, we do our hot tags. We, of course, always want to know what you have to say. So give your thoughts in the comment section below or post it around elsewhere on all the different platforms that you can. Of course, you can be leaving comments on YouTube, but you could be doing things on Facebook, on Twitter, on multiple different accounts there, on the page on smarkupmoment.com, on the Facebook group, The Megamaniacs, on our Discord server, which you can find the link on the sidebar, or you can see it up on your screen right now. Could also be putting stuff out there in the complete ethos, the ether, and maybe it'll come back around. I don't know. Get on a soapbox and scream out to the heavens, just like what I want to do. Keep in mind, though, if you want to keep me sane, the best way to do it is to toss a little spare change our way so that my bank account doesn't make me even worse. But the best way to do that is the Pick Your Poison tier on Patreon. But all the different tiers that are on Patreon or the YouTube channel membership are all greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. So even if it's $1 a month, or you're in the $5 ad block forgiveness tier, or the $10 Darkcast tier, that is all friggin' awesome. The thanks button that's out there. Thank you to Ashton for putting a little thanks on the previous video that we did about the Olympics, which if you did not check that out, go and check out the WWE versus AEW Olympic Games podcast that we had done. I watched a little bit of the opening ceremony, and I thought it's ridiculous that they still have can-can dancing, but I guess I'm not cultured because it's France or whatever, as if I care about culture anyway. I only care about my own culture. So keep all that in mind, but also Redbubble and TeePublic when it comes to merchandise. So if you want to pick up a t-shirt or something like that, those are your methods to do that, because I just haven't figured out any other better way. And if you have any other suggestions, let me know, and I will gladly take all of my stuff off of those platforms and move to another one. Yeah, all right, so you can tell I'm extra surly on this episode for spending...
Sorry, surly.
Shut up. Not telling Rob to shut up for anybody that's wondering. If you're not a big Simpsons fan, that is one of my favorite Simpsons joke of all time, when Surly Duff just goes, shut up. Deep breath. At least I can do them. Okay. Let's get into the hot tags. We got a couple different things we need to talk about for this episode that are going back in time, as if I really wish that I could, but one of them being Slammiversary 2024, the results of the pay-per-view that just happened over the past week, which I did not watch, but did you guys check out any of it?
I did.
I had a reservation for the mallet to my testicles instead, probably.
Oh God!
I'm just listing things I'd rather be doing than watching Slammiversary.
Now, it's a mallet or is it a gavel? We keep having that discussion.
It depends. If I used it in a courtroom setting, it would have been a gavel.
Yeah. These guys they're not entirely wrong for their complete disdain of the product, but I watch everything, actually, unless it's like some random indie that doesn't have TV. If it's on TV, I'm probably watching it. So yes, I did see Slammiversary. No, I'm not going to run down every single result, because I think for the most part all people would care about is Jordynne Grace defended the Knockouts title against Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke. Grace still came out on top there. The Rascals competed against No Quarter Cash Crew. It was essentially an NXT match. Very fun. And that working relationship continues. And the 6-man elimination match for the world title, which had Macklin, Moose, Frankie Kazarian, Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, Joe Hendry, and Josh Alexander essentially boils down to Moose got eliminated by Joe Hendry, guaranteeing a new world champion. Everybody was excited for Joe Hendry for about 2 seconds, and then Josh Alexander kicked him square in the nuts, and there was no mallet. And then Josh Alexander turned heel, eliminating Hendry immediately, and that's one of the signature stories they're telling. But Josh Alexander was not the last to get eliminated because they actually saved Frankie Kazarian for that. And Nick Nemeth ended up pinning Kazarian. So yes, about 10 years after they're both relevant, Dolph Ziggler is finally the TNA World Champion.
That was surprising to me, as we talked about before. I figured that they would either just keep it on Moose or switch it over to Joe Hendry. And I know that a lot of people's reactions to this are, oh, that's proof that Joe Hendry is going to be signed now by NXT, which I believe he has a couple years left in his contract, or signed a new one recently or something.
I think it's just proof that, like, TNA probably said to Nemeth, hey, we want to build you for Slammiversary, and they just didn't want to waver.
Probably so. And I mean, who's to say that Joe Hendry doesn't just beat Nemeth for it or something? Or that they just realized that he is popular and he doesn't need the championship in some ways. But that's,
no, the championship needs him. He's on NXT TV.
I think NXT needs him. I mean, they're making a big deal about the biggest selling point, funny enough, on the next episode of NXT, which, reminder everybody, it's going to be on Sci-Fi for the next 2 weeks because of the Olympics. And it is week 1 of the 2-week NXT Great American Bash episodes. They have 3 titles on the line, and they're like, but everybody wants the Joe Hendry and ring concert thing. So, hey, if you liked Elias back in the day.
There's a great video on Joe Hendry's YouTube, because he fought Elias recently, and he essentially did a cover of Casey and the Sunshine Band. Na 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 na. Hendry took his job. Hendry took his...
I like that. That's good. It's a good song too. If anybody hasn't ever seen Kingsman,
Give It Up is a great song. It's a more known for what usually Callum's people do in stadiums, because they can turn anything into a song, and I think that's probably the most endearing thing about hosting a show in London.
Well, the most common the most recent example that I recall doing that is at All In, when we started chanting "Wheeler's Got a Gun" to that tune. So,
Wheeler's got a gun.
Well, you mentioned, actually, I don't think there's really anything else for us to break down on Slammiversary. It's the things happened.
There's not.
Yeah, a lot of it is what we expected.
I set you up for the segue perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean,
what I was doing.
The only was Ali finally lost a match.
Oh yes,
which is remarkable.
Oh, and then that shit was overbooked to high hell. There were sharpshooters. Earl Hebner was there. But the point is, Mike Bailey's the X Division champion, and Ali lost his first singles match. I think they said like 320 something days. So there's that.
I mean, that's 300 something days. Look at Logan Paul with all his 200 something days as United States champion with his 3 title defenses.
Hey, they're still happy with their investment.
Is Dean Ambrose the number 1, or is it MVP for the longest U.S. title reign?
I think it's Ambrose.
You're referring to just WWE ones?
Yeah, the WWE ones.
Yeah, I'd say that.
I think it's Ambrose and then MVP.
Ambrose. Yeah.
Which Ambrose was notorious for doing the whole, like, I'm not doing anything with the belt, so that's what they like doing with the U.S. title. Yes, Rob set up a segue perfectly for the idea of switching over to England, because the rumors and all the things that are going around for a long while about WWE potentially bringing WrestleMania to London seem very much more likely now that there have been much more reports with Triple H and Nick Khan meeting with the mayor of London and having a very stupid looking picture, I would have to say, like, the little tiny championship, because the guy's smaller than the two of them, so it just looks like it's like we gave him the baby belt because he's baby. Not at all the picture that I would have gone with, but I mean, for having this type of a meeting, you got to assume that it's likely that that's happening sometime in the next couple of years or so. If not, WrestleMania, then maybe this could be a meeting of let's see if we could do WrestleMania, but in the meantime, let's try to figure out if there's other things that we can do, and then we can set up some kind of thing the way that we've done with like as if I have anything to do with this. So yeah, to the person that reached out to me on an email earlier today asking that they would be a part of the SmackDown writing team. Yeah, if I could figure out how to get you that job, I'd get it for myself first. But the meeting up with this London guy, I think that their whole global localization thing where they had said before that the big 4 pay-per-views are going to stay in the United States, then it became more so that WrestleMania is going to stay in the United States. Seems like they're just pretty much going to get rid of that idea and they're going to go wherever the money is. And I don't blame them necessarily for it because WrestleMania doesn't need to be in the United States. England can have WrestleMania. It's not a problem, everyone. The only issue would be when it comes to the time of when you would put this up on, live on Peacock and stuff. And I understand that that's a turn off for the American audience to be like, I don't want WrestleMania to start at like noon. But for a lot of people, that'd be fucking great. Because then it's not like the Super Bowl starts at 8 o'clock at night,
The only thing I will say, and I've pretty much said the same thing since they started doing these events overseas, is I feel bad for like the one, those people that are just like, I'm gonna save up all my money because I live in Philly, and eventually they're gonna do a SummerSlam in Philly, and it's like, yeah, they're actually getting real comfortable doing these events in, London or Paris, and I feel bad for that type of fan. But other than that, yeah, I see no problem in, hosting these events wherever.
I mean, at this point, you can't even get house show tickets for a relatively cheap price. Philly is going to have Raw, I think it is. And my buddy John posted a thing up on Facebook. Let me see if I can find it while I'm talking about this. The prices were absolutely absurd. And it's like, it's Monday Night Raw. It's actually not even all that fun to go and see an episode of like Raw or SmackDown or something, because it's so much of it is, tapped into like watching things on your screen and all. But the John, what's your friggin' Facebook? I'm trying to find this thing now. I hate when people do this whole thing where they change their names on Facebook. He had found it was some kind of number where it was like, so I think like the ringside tickets were like $1,000 or something.
So I don't follow this person on Facebook, but I did see a recent Sportskeeda video with Russo in the thumbnail that was like $2,500 to see Sami Zayn. What? But honestly, if you think about it, somebody out there would probably pay that money.
So it was wow. Okay, so I found the thing. John, doing your whole first and middle name thing. So he's trying to get tickets for ringside, the Ringsider package thing. 2 tickets. Guess how much after the processing fee and everything that this was supposed to be?
$1,474.
Nope. Take a guess, Callum.
Close to $5,000.
$3,328.30.
Damn.
Nearly $3,400 to get a ringside Raw seat for Philly. And it's not like it's the one right before WrestleMania. It's not like it's like that they advertised any crazy things.
But like, do you see what I mean? That's the person I feel bad for. That is now like being fucking gouged at their only chances to try to go to one of these events.
And get a seat that they can actually see something. Yeah. Absolutely absurd. But then again, when it comes to switching around and going to the other things, all these other countries didn't have a chance to see anything for the longest time. So it's like, give London WrestleMania, break some records, get a whole, get that crowd to be able to be like, I went to WrestleMania because I can't afford to spend the money on the flight and the hotel and, their seats to get like nosebleed seats to be $9,000 after all the other tickets and stuff. And I know that you got your ticket for All In, Callum, but if it's WrestleMania and it's WWE, if they end up announcing that WrestleMania is coming to London, would you get tickets?
No.
Still wouldn't.
Really? Are you? So wait, is that like you're just checked out in WWE, or is that just like No,
I don't think I've made a secret of that fact. Like, as it would be. I assume that it would be extremely more expensive to go to a WWE Wembley show than an AEW Wembley show, and yeah, I don't have any interest in, especially sitting around for. I know AEW shows are long, but they're long and you have like loads of matches. Whereas I don't think I really want to sit through a 6-7 hour long show when 3 hours is commercials.
So let me ask you this: would you go to the independent events in and around Mania?
It would depend what was on, but yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm not. It's not like I'm going to the Rev Pro show the day before All In, so it's unlikely that I'd go to multiple other shows because these things are expensive. So, and they will bump the prices up as soon as they know that WrestleMania is taking place in London. So, you know, if there's one that interested me, then I'd go. But the likelihood is that I'd probably just miss out on the whole thing.
That's fair. I mean, like, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that, you know, WrestleMania wasn't 20 minutes for me 3 years ago, and I didn't go. You know, so I
didn't
can't
go to Philly. Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't say, oh my god, how can you not go to Mania? I
don't see it as the bucket list item that a lot of fans see it as.
I think it's worth going if you have the opportunity. Having gone to a WrestleMania that sucked, I wish I could have gone to Philly, but then again, I looked at the prices, and the prices were, you know, hey, do I want to order food for the rest of the year, or do I want to go to WrestleMania? And I like my marinara pizza. Shout out to marinara pizza, fucking great. I'm probably gonna order it tonight. Now that I said that,
yeah.
Man, I want some pizza. So I would say that, like, I think that WrestleMania is going to go to London at some point, but I don't think that it's going to happen within the next 2-3 years. I mean, we obviously know that the next one's Las Vegas, and they haven't announced beyond that, but it seems like they want to do that Minnesota. I forget the stadium, and that they have the whole thing that's set up right now with 2026 and SummerSlam and all. They're working on deals for multiple years in advance. For all we know, they go, yes, WrestleMania is coming to London in 2031 or something. And then
that shit's kind of annoying now. Like,
what WrestleMania would that be? What's the math for that behind that? It's
2031. That would be
6 years from now. So
45.
Crazy. Yeah, I'll be around for that one. If you are from the UK, though, let us know. Would you go to WrestleMania if it was extremely expensive? Would you still just check it off the bucket list, as Callum had said, or would that be something that would just be a matter of pricing and all that? Let us know about that. We do have people from the UK that are listening to this podcast. Let's switch to pick a number between 1 and 4. One of you.
3.
All right, so we're going to go with the Buddy Matthews re-signed with All Elite Wrestling. I did not see that one coming. I figured he'd be switching over to WWE and, you know, hanging around more with his wife, Rhea Ripley, but sticking around. And you know what? That could be an indicator that some of the other people that we were assuming were going to switch around are going to stick too. Malachi Black maybe isn't necessarily looking for that. Or maybe that's no indication whatsoever. It could just be Buddy's choice. Maybe he really likes it there and other people can decide. Of course, it doesn't have to be one way or another, but I was very shocked about that. Were you guys?
I was a little surprised because I assumed that House Black was going to kind of come to a natural end fairly soon, and that Buddy would be one that would leave, and Malachi would be one that would leave. But you know, if he's happy what he's been doing, and he thinks that his ceiling may be a bit higher in AEW than it would be in WWE, then you know, it's maybe a good choice for him. And say I don't know what the projection is him, or encouraged him to sign, other than just maybe he just likes the schedule. It's not like he probably because of the schedule of AEW. It's not like he is apart from Rhea that often. So yeah, it may just be a good move for him in terms of the way that he wants to, the workload that he wants to put on himself.
The most shocking thing to me was, I believe the report came from Dave, right? And it was basically that he had tried to leave, but Tony was like, I know where you're going. I'm not letting you go. And then they threw a bunch of money at him. And he was like, yeah, sure. I'll take the money. Which, if you've watched Andrade, just to use an example of Andrade, maybe he's fine where he is because he would have been, doing the same level either way.
I think more and more these days we are seeing, if you go from WWE to AEW, or you go from AEW back to WWE, or maybe even necessarily for the first time, people got to stop working this idea of like, and then you're going to get a massive push past your level of the totem pole. Andrade comes back and it's like, now he's going to be used. But nah, he went from the same spot in WWE to AEW to WWE again. We know the ceiling for Andrade at this point. And I think that Buddy, clearly there's a positive for staying around in AEW more so than trying to go to WWE. If it's money, if it's time, if it's the matches, there is a certain level of, if you want to be that type of a performer, you're going to want to be in AEW more. Look at Bryan Danielson. He clearly enjoys being in the space of AEW and wrestling those style matches than, the WWE style. And I don't blame him whatsoever for that. Buddy is more impactful in a wrestling ring if he is in a position where he can be taken seriously. And the guy's super talented. You put him in a ring with a lot of people in AEW, he's going to have a hell of a match. He might not win it, but he's going to have a hell of a match. And you take him and you put him in the same ring in WWE, they already are going to hamper him and be like, well, we don't want you to get that much offense in there because you're not going to win. And yeah, I'm just surprised about the whole thing with him not going over to Rhea. But if it's not that much of a difference between the amount of time that they spend apart.
Do you think maybe part of the concern would be that if he was to go back to WWE, they would have just paired him with Rhea? And he doesn't want to just be typecast as, I'm Rhea's husband, so I need to do stuff with Rhea Ripley.
That's done wonders for Dominic's career. I don't see the problem.
It could be because, the last time he was in WWE, he had the whole thing with Aaliyah. And, that went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just a case that they just want to make sure their own personal careers kept separate. Maybe it's because he doesn't want to interfere on what she's doing. He doesn't want to become like not to put an anchor on her, but say, things that I do will have to revolve around you because we're married in real life. So I can still be in AEW, do my thing. You can still do your thing in WWE. Yeah. Maybe eventually goes back there, but right now you do get the assumption, especially with the way that some of the storylines of Raw have been happening, that if he comes over to WWE, it's just going to be all about those two on Raw. And maybe neither of them are kind of keen on that idea.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be a lot of factors. But I'm still kind of surprised that happened. Another signing bit of news, but I don't think any of us have really too much to say about this. Delta Brady signed with WWE, and I've never heard of her before. I have no idea what she looks like, what she does, if she's good, if she's bad, what she's been a part of, what company she wrestles for.
She's Australian. And she's pretty good. She's Rhea Ripley shouted her out as the future of Australian wrestling back in February when they were over there for Chamber. Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen her work, but I'll take Rhea Ripley's word and I'll take the clips I've seen as she's probably a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I haven't heard of her until her name just came up as saying, she signed with WWE. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. They're trying to stack up their women's roster with some more stars from the independent scene. So that can only be a benefit to the performers that have come through the Performance Center.
Do you think that that is a direct response to, okay, we've been dealing long enough without any top stars, and the girls in NXT are really, really, really green?
I think that could be part of it. You do want to have some people that are more polished workers to help the others out. But then again, like from what I don't watch it significantly closely, but from what I have seen, it doesn't really seem like that really matters too much to them. I mean, everyone's like talking about like how amazing Obafemi is, and Obafemi isn't a great wrestler. He just has a great look, and so you just need to. That's kind of the basis. I think the reason why NXT is so popular and so many people have been gravitating more towards it recently is because it just showcases young people. I think that's really just the only secret to it is that I say you can say that the good character or everything. It just shows young people that people want to see, and I think that people overlook how important that is to just see new fresh faces on the screen
and legitimately fresh, not like, well, they're TV fresh, but like legitimately, it is nice to go, hey, this Carly Bright person's like 22. If she wants to, she can do this for 10 years and only be 32. Instead of it being like, I don't know, gotta get those, Cody Rhodes matches in before you turn around and he's retired.
I mean, we of course have Julia. We have Stephanie Becerra coming in there now. They're clearly on a hiring spree of sorts, at least in the NXT Women's division, because I'm assuming that this Delta Brady is probably going to go to NXT, and we'll see if she's got anything specific to offer when it comes to that. I mean, I haven't seen anything of it, so if anybody is aware of anything great that she does, she's got a hell of a finisher or something like that, great promos, whatever it might be, then let us know about that too. In the meantime, I guess we're just going to be on the lookout. Let's switch over to some TV talk, and most of the TV talk stuff that I've got actually for this week is just AEW based.
Well, before we go there, there's one that we should touch on real quick, which is Meiko Satomura. She announced that she's looking to wrap up her career in 2025, and she's been part of the recent WWE tour in Japan. In fact, I think she's fighting Bayley for the women's title tomorrow. And I think that's really cool that they're giving her that time, and they're giving these other women who wanted to work with her the chance to do so. I always like Meiko.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good that if she wants to call to own her career, because I think it marks 2025 marks her 30th year in the wrestling business, so it seems like a nice round number to end the career on. So yeah, but hopefully they do give more opportunities. Like I know there's it's good they're giving her these opportunities now, but it might have been good if they wanted to use her for the last 2 years instead of just having her sit on the sidelines. But hopefully they do something worthwhile for her last year, or let her go over to Japan to do something there instead.
It is weird that she wrestled in February or something 2023 and against Roxanne, and then she just didn't do anything for a full year up until now, basically. So I don't know if she was injured or if they were just renegotiating things or had nothing in mind, but they're doing something now. And if it's going to be something that leads to being on TV, that's better, because they should utilize her while they can. You guys have anybody in mind that you would think would be the best opponent for her to retire against?
Julia, probably.
Yeah. I
don't know if that's the best choice, but I think it feels like the choice that they would make if it happened in NXT at the very least.
It's a match I'd like to see, and as long as we get to see her on TV a couple more times, or if they at least release the match that she's gonna have with Bayley, I'd like to see that.
nobody like springs to mind to me specifically. If it's like, okay, this has to be like she has to fight Asuka last, or has to go up against Bianca Belair or whoever it might be. I got nothing on Raw for us to really like talk about off the top of my head. I'm seeing that we're kind of missing that right now on the Smark Moment website, so I'm do that.
Raw. So I think the biggest thing from Raw is that Punk is cleared and he's going to fight McIntyre, and they're going to have Rollins in there, and that's the best story this company has right now. I think it kind of sucks when they're all veterans and it feels like we were just talking about the fun and youth of NXT, but they're good. And every time that they do anything, you're just like, oh, that was fun. So I'm looking forward to that match probably more than anything else at SummerSlam. Other than that, on Raw, I think, we got confirmation that Braun Breaker will just challenge Sami Zayn again at SummerSlam. And you got the beginnings of like the Nikki Cross origins with the Wyatt Six, which Jerry's still out. I still want to see them in the ring, but they're still going.
I'm trying to look it up. For some reason, we are behind on multiple things on there. I think that my website's been glitching out and we're missing multiple TV episodes or something. So, another thing for me to be happy about.
Well, the fact that wasn't at the forefront of your mind, not shocking.
About for what
just knowing that like
that things are missing,
even happening. Yeah.
Telling everybody I'm getting sign after sign after sign that Smark Moment should just disappear. And if you want to make sure that that's not the case, the Marketplace things, let me hire people that can fix things and do better with that stuff. But Braun Breaker getting that Intercontinental title shot, that's another thing that, of course, we'll break down next week a little bit more. We have SmackDown, of course, that tonight has been pre-taped, so that's something that we don't need to worry about either. Yeah, we already have all that out there. You can find out what happens. It's mostly a gauntlet to set up the number one contenders for the tag titles, which
Spoiler
if you
alert,
see who wins that, it's pretty obvious.
It's the bloodline. It's Girls of Destiny against DIY at SummerSlam.
Yeah, so it's something, again, we'll talk about a little bit later on. NXT this week. We had a no DQ match. Brooks Jensen. I'm looking at Braun Breaker on my screen right now. Brooks Jensen beat Josh Briggs. We had the follow-up of things like the Eddie Thorpe and Lexis King thing that nobody would have cared about. But we're kind of like all that stuff. I don't really feel like there's nothing really to talk about on NXT. AEW this week had quite a bit to talk about, and some of that's on the spoiler end, some of that's prediction stuff. We will talk about ROH Death Before Dishonor predictions and Battle of the Belts predictions. But one of the main topics for this week is the start of Dynamite, which had MJF renaming the International Championship the AEW American Championship. So that has gone from the All-Atlantic to the International to then the Continental Championship was created on the side of that, and then now this is the American.
The funniest
the Continental
thing about
Crown, and then the Championship, and then
the funniest thing about this is that he's creating the American Championship with the whole American flag backdrop. As on my other screen, Joe Biden is like, "Yeah, it's time for me to step aside and we need some fresh faces in America." And like, I'm looking at this, like, essentially Donald Trump's wet dream of a championship belt. It's like, I don't know. I think it's just a gimmick to go for a month. I think Ospreay beats him, and it's just literally something they created for a month. But we'll see.
It could be that. Like, it could just be a means to get heat. And
yeah.
He brings the American title to London. Ospreay wins it back. It's reestablished as the International Championship again, and it was just a little funny, haha type of thing. If not, it kind of gives me the vibe that it's like, okay, Tony, just admit you wanted the Intercontinental, the TV, and the United States titles, and just do that,
What will be the matter with those?
just do them. Like, then don't try to rename it 100 times to do something that's similar, but not quite. Just call them the Intercontinental Championship and the United States Championship and whatever, if that ends up sticking around.
It won't stick around. It's gonna return back to the international after this because they're not having. Let's put it this way: Ospreay's fighting MJF All In. MJF's not beating Will Ospreay All in London. That's just not going to happen. So yeah, this would just be a short-term gimmick thing, just to add a bit more heat. The issue being that when MJF did reveal that US Championship, the crowd just immediately started chanting USA because all Americans are idiots, to some degree or another. Yeah, I mean, they kind of just told themselves there, especially like wrestling fans. So they're just going to tell on themselves a little bit. They don't understand the nuance of whether they understand the nuance of the story or not. They just see, star stripes, red, white, blue, and just immediately just go into feral mode of like, oh, we have to demonstrate our patriotism over, like, our action. Like, this is supposed to be a bad guy character, but he comes from here, so you must cheer him.
I wasn't on the podcast last week because I was dying from COVID, but Hulk Hogan at the RNC was a literal fever dream. As I'm sick, a literal fever dream to see Hulk Hogan ripping the shirt off at the Republican National. What the fuck are we doing here? It's what I'm trying to say here. America needs to get itself together, and that can't happen soon enough.
In way more ways than one. Yeah, I don't like the idea of this being the American Championship if they end up sticking around with it for more than this. If they don't end up sticking around with this, then I still kind of just look at this and go, okay, well, then was it really necessary to create a whole belt just for like 2 weeks? Like, it's not going to be around for that long. And I like, the belt itself doesn't look bad. That's not an issue for me. I've said before, I don't like location-based championships or anything gimmicky like that in general. But the international title, I liked the name of that, so I kind of want them to stick around with the international championship. I'd rather them keep that than any of the other options in a lot of different ways. But I look at the setup for this, and I do kind of lean towards it's probably Ospreay just winning it back and all. If not, then it kind of factors into something that we're going to talk about with some of these other topics. It ends up being more of that case of like, they need to figure out what they're doing with these belts and not just keep flipping around, because one of the things that is going to tie into the ROH predictions and the Battle of the Belts predictions, the ROH World 6-Man Tag Team titles are back to being split again. When was it that they had unified this? It was in January, I believe.
Way after January.
Yeah, it was like, it was
like nothing. Like,
I think it was after Dynasty.
That's right. Yeah, it was that.
Yeah, Double or Nothing. Yeah.
Within that, they're just like, okay, well, we're gonna take the title away from them, and then we're gonna vacate it. Where they're gonna have new champions, but now we're gonna get rid of that. But now we're gonna have a setup where, and we might as well factor this in. We'll come back and talk about like Blood and Guts. The ROH World 6-Man Tag titles are going to be up for grabs at Battle of the Belts 11. It's going to be either the Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes or the Dark Order against the Undisputed Kingdom, who are at least currently the ROH World Tag Team Champions, and then Roderick Strong, who's going in for the ROH World title. So I'm glad Battle of the Belts is going to have a title change, because it's happened like once out of the past 9 shows or something, I think. Out of 11 shows, I think that they've had 2 title changes out of 3 matches per show or something. But I look at this and I just go, okay, well, you're either going to forecast that these titles are changing hands in a different way, and you're going to have the tag titles drop from Undisputed Kingdom, and Strong doesn't win the world title, and then they win the 6-man, or you're going to be doubling up on champions again. And if you're doubling up on champions again, I'd much rather you just actually unify the belts instead of continually doing this thing that WWE and AEW are obsessed with lately, which is give more than one belt to somebody, call it a unification, but then within a few months, split it up again. It's like a plague happening right now in wrestling.
I mean, I don't really see the overarching problem of doing this. Like, they had the belts. It was like a unified thing, but when they decided to like strip them of the titles, they can become two separate titles again. So I'd have no problem with ROH having a 6-man tag titles that's cut away from the AEW one, as long as it just remains on Ring of Honor.
That is the problem.
Yeah,
And
so that's the only caveat of all this. As long as the ROH titles just stay on Ring of Honor, maybe pop up every now and again on AEW, but they're primarily just focused on Ring of Honor, then there's no issue with it, because then there's less like belt fatigue in AEW, because you don't have to add the Ring of Honor titles into the mix as well.
I just don't see the point in continually being like, well, we kind of want to put them in with this, and then is it a matter of like that they don't think that these guys feel important enough, so they have to give them another championship, which diminishes the titles? Or is it a matter of not knowing what to do with the titles, so you just put it on the other guys in the meantime? I don't see where the end game is.
I think it's kind of like, it kind of has to be thrown up in the air a little bit, because they just didn't anticipate Jay White getting injured. They might have had a plan for what they were going to do with the belts, but then Jay White gets injured and the plans just go out the window. So they've just decided to try and harness this as an opportunity to do something different than what their original intention was. You know, and it might be better, it might be worse, but at the end of the day, like, it's kind of just been a needs must situation. They have to think of something else to do, because they just can't do what their original plan was for these things.
So I want to go back to the actual Undisputed Kingdom of it all, because they didn't announce the trio that would be representing the Undisputed Kingdom, and as best as I can tell, Wardlow's not hurt. That's first of all. Wardlow's not hurt. He hasn't shown his face since Double or Nothing, but he's not hurt. Also, I just think Kyle O'Reilly's turning on Ishii tonight. And I think he'll factor into that in some way. I mean, there is always the absolute most obvious answer, which is just, it'll just be Roddy in the Kingdom, and they'll probably just double up on belts somewhere. But I think there's a good chance either Kyle joins or Wardlow's just there, because they do have him.
Where is Wardlow? That is weird.
Not really. Like, they just don't want to use him, because they're probably just waiting for his contracts to come
him
down
and Ricky
release
Starks are just like in this ether.
Why would they use him if they know that they're probably just going to release him once his contract's due?
Do you assume that that's going to be the case with Wardlow?
Well, yeah.
I assume Wardlow's leaving. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'd say I'm closing in on 100% certain at this point.
I would probably be, if I were a booker, I'd probably be jobbing him out. Maybe I'm just petty. I don't know.
AEW doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they try and maintain at least as good a relationship as they can with people on the way out. I mean, look at what they did with Jade Cargill. Yes, she lost her final couple of matches, but like, she was never treated as a joke on the way out.
They could have had her lose the belt and then, lose a few more times.
I probably shouldn't have said jobber, because I know that upsets Dustin Rhodes. He said recently about the whole enhancement talent thing.
Speaking of, he and the Von Erichs could be the new Ring of Honor 6-man tag champions. And if the Undisputed Kingdom wasn't on the other side, that's the team I'd go with. Because the Von Erichs are good. The Iron Claw was one of the most sad movies I've ever seen in my life. But give the Von Erichs something in Texas. You're there for a little bit. Give to them.
I feel like they're definitely winning that match against Dark Order, at least. And then I think that they're being set up to lose to the Undisputed Kingdom. Which that, of course, factors a little bit into the predictions. But, that's kind of what we're talking about. is predictions for both those things. There's another match that's on Battle of the Belts. It's an eliminator match between Ty Valkyrie against Timeless Toni Storm. So Ty Valkyrie's not beating her for that belt, so even if she beats her in the eliminator, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and she won't beat her in that match either because you're not going to do that before the Wembley match with Mariah May. So
yeah, I don't think that there's almost any chance that she wins the Eliminator period. But the I mean, they're booking this for some reason. I don't really know why. I guess Tony Khan just wants to see the match. Okay,
let's get Toni Storm on the card. So even though there's no chance of her losing, she's still a star. So there might be people who want to watch it because just Toni Storm is on it.
So at least going back to the ROH Death Before Dishonor stuff, which will happen in a few hours, and we already talked about one of those matches. We got Mason D. Madden and Mansoor are going to be in a pre-show match against a team that hasn't been announced yet. Probably doesn't matter because they're just going to win.
Yeah, and people will love it because people seem to love them.
Yeah, it should be a good showcase for them. Again, it very much depends on who TBA is. If TBA is just a pair of quote-unquote jobbers, then yeah, they'll get a victory and then can do something for a little while. I'm interested to see what the stage setup will be like for the whole show in particular, because this is now part of their they're now in their residency at this arena, so interested if they dress it up a little bit for the Death Before Dishonor show.
We have the Beast Mortos against Commander has been added. It was a kind of new addition to the card. Let's go Mortos. Why
not? Beast Mortos is very good. He had that great match with Darby Allin on Collision last week, so maybe this would be a good opportunity to get him a big victory over Commander, who just it's usually there as like a cool flippy enhancement guy for the most part. So yeah, I'd go Mortos.
I'm also gonna go Mortos.
And then we got the matches on some other matches on the main card itself, because I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't announce more for the pre-show instead. Usually these ROH things seem to have 38 matches to them. There's a Texas Death match between Layla Hirsch and Diamante. If I remember correctly, Layla Hirsch had won the promo thing about Layla Hirsch beats Diamante all the time, despite how Diamante's got actually some more wins over in 6-woman tags and stuff than Layla Hirsch. And Diamante beat her in a lights out match. So that's one of those things that is funny to me, because it's okay, well, if you did a lights out match, to be separate from that, to be okay, well, that should be a feud ender in some ways. And then you do a Texas Death match afterward. I wonder why they needed to follow up a lights out match with the Texas Death match. And the only thing I can imagine is because Diamante is not supposed to be the feud ending winner. So I'm going to go Layla Hirsch.
I mean, I presume Layla Hirsch is going to get the victory. The main reason I could presume they're doing the Texas Death match instead is because Diamante did beat her in the lights out match, but because it is a lights out match, it means that it's unsanctioned. So even though she technically beat Layla Hirsch, by an actual record standpoint, she didn't beat Layla Hirsch because it's not a sanctioned match. So this would give her an opportunity to actually beat her. Now that she knows she has beaten her in this kind of rules match, she's now going to be in a more officially sanctioned match, in a Texas Death match, where she can still use the weapons and do that stuff, and believe that she'll be able to beat Layla Hirsch because she's more adept with hardcore matches than Hirsch is, and Hirsch will manage to overcome it and still get the victory. So yeah, and also they're doing Texas Death match because they're in Texas, so kind of the rule.
You gotta at least put that on the card somewhere in there, right? And if you don't want to throw it in for some of these other people, let's put it into that match. Where's Terry Funk at, right? He's never retired. It doesn't matter if he's alive or not. He sets a bar that I don't necessarily feel like is going to be okay, well, I can't wait to see this Diamante and Layla Hirsch thing as a Texas Death match. But then again, I am approaching this from somebody who doesn't really watch ROH, so maybe I'm missing out on some amazing feud that's been happening, but I haven't heard a peep about quite literally any of these matches and any of these feuds, to the point that I didn't know that this was happening until basically yesterday. And then my notifications came up as if you would have searched for ROH Death Before Dishonor 2024 predictions, Smark Out Moment came up as one of the only things that was out there, and they didn't even have a Wikipedia page up for it until like a few days ago. Just goes to show you how little attention ROH is getting these days. And the only person that I know that has talked about this at all is a friend of mine that's saying that, like, who's going to bother to watch this? So, yeah, maybe the people that are out there that are really big fans, maybe they can tell us some kind of, like, this amazing feud that's been happening with this or whatever. But Diamante and Layla Hirsch, Texas Death Match, I'm sure I'd go plenty other people into Texas Death Match before I'd pick on that one. Rob is currently stepped away right now, but let's cycle back a little bit and get his prediction for that in a moment. Wheeler Yuta's defending the Pure title against Lee Moriarty. I'm assuming Yuta keeps his belt, because why would they take so long with him not being around and not stripping him of the title just to be able to have him lose to Lee Moriarty? Probably not.
Yeah, Yuta is almost certainly going to retain. So.
Oh, they should really let Lee Moriarty win something. But yeah, Yuta will probably retain.
Rob, who are you going with for Diamante and Hirsch?
Hirsch, because hey, they're 1-1. It's a Texas Death Match. Whoever wins this is probably gonna get some kind of a title shot next. So that's something to keep an eye on.
All the more reason why I would assume it's Layla Hirsch against Athena down the line.
I meant Billy Stark, so they remember there's 2 women's titles.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Undefeated Kingdom against Conglomeration, Tomohiro Ishii and Kyle O'Reilly. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Now, you think that Kyle O'Reilly's turning on him?
I think there's a shot.
No, Kane's involved?
No, he's not. Yeah, but I do think that there's a legitimate chance, because they randomly decided to throw Kyle back in front of these dudes. They did their little match with Roderick and Kyle, and then suddenly they were just like obsessed again after like a month. Oh, we gotta get Kyle. So maybe they get Kyle, and maybe the Undisputed Kingdom becomes more of a Ring of Honor act for the interim.
I'm gonna keep it on Undisputed Kingdom.
I am as well.
The Undisputed Kingdom will retain, I believe.
Billy Starks against Red Velvet for the ROH Women's World TV title. I'm going to stick around with Starks. It kind of seems like Velvet to me is just sort of there to be an opponent.
This and the other women's title match are like the only built matches on the card, because they feature Billy and Athena, and Ring of Honor is legitimately the Billy and Athena show. It'll be fine, but Velvet's not winning.
Yeah, Billy Starks will retain, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a good match.
You guys still on that approach of Billy Starks is going to be the one that beats Athena?
Oh, I have no idea anymore.
yeah, I can tell you one way or the other at this point.
Because Athena's going up against Queen Aminata for the ROH Women's World title, and again, I'm so removed from this that I don't really know how Queen Aminata has been approached or been promoted lately. Not approached. So I'm assuming Athena retains, and it's just that Aminata was built up to be a worthy challenger. But for all I know, maybe Aminata is the person that they want to have win that title.
Athena, because why fucking kill it if it's not broken?
I'd say that it's kind of broken at this point. Like,
hold on. Let me reframe my words. Ring of Honor as a whole is broken. But Athena's like the rubber band holding it together. Athena's one of the only good things.
I think it's true that she used to be a rubber band. I think now that that rubber band is now putting a chokehold on the actual neck of the promotion, because it's like an albatross now, where she is just like, until you sever that cord and just say, okay, we can't just rely on Athena now to do these things, we need to just cut it off. And if it ends up being bad for us before it gets good, if it is worse for us before it gets better, then we have to do it. But in order to make new stars or to approach things differently, we need to break ties with some of the old guard holding this fort down. And I think Athena's like, as I say, I don't think Athena's losing the title here, and that is solely due to the fact that it's in Texas. So she'll be treated like a hometown person on this show. The most interesting thing going into the story is the fact that Athena spent the whole period between the last show and this one with feigning a leg injury. So she's essentially going to be defending the title and pretending that she's hobbling on one leg throughout the entire thing and prove that she's been faking, and then Aminata will try and make a comeback. Athena does eventually get the victory. That's how I kind of see it going, but I wouldn't be opposed to Aminata winning. I think that she's a very, very hot prospect. So I say, if it was any other situation, I'd probably put the title on Aminata now. But because it's in Texas and Athena will be treated like a fallen goddess there, I think that she retain the title.
We also have a survival of the fittest match for the ROH World Television Championship. It's going to be Atlantis Jr. defending against Lio Rush, Lee Johnson, other people that don't start off with Lee, Johnny TV, Shane Taylor, and Brian Cage, according to Wikipedia. I don't know how any of them got into the match, but they did. And I'm assuming Atlantis Jr. is retaining.
They put a graphic on the internet.
That's the big setup for it.
That said, here's your fucking Ring of Honor television title match. Anyone but Atlantis Jr., please. Anyone. Shane Taylor's great. Brian Cage is fine. Johnny TV, I will never not be a John Morrison fan, and even though it would probably be the worst option of the bunch, he's also fine. Lio Rush is great at wrestling. I just don't want to see the guy retain because I have no idea why they even gave it to him.
You'll give CMLL something in this arrangement. Give him a Ring of Honor World Television Champion.
I guess you're right.
Good enough.
You're right.
I think the prediction be I think that Lee Johnson is probably going to win it. He's kind of a guy that they've been pushing under the radar for pretty much the whole year so far. So he's the one that came closest to beating Cole Fletcher before Cole Fletcher did eventually lose the title to Atlantis Jr. So he seems to be the heir apparent to it. I think they might even build it up to have a Lee Johnson. If Lee Johnson was to win the title, Lee Johnson would defend the title against Cole Fletcher in some fashion and would finally get the victory over Cole Fletcher that he hasn't got so far. So yeah, that's I would say that Lee Johnson gets the victory in this one.
Gun to my head, I'm gonna go Shane Taylor.
I'm just gonna stick around on Atlantis. When I don't know who is got the most amount of momentum or something, my rule of thumb is always keep it on the champion because more than likely that's 9 times out of 10 the champion does retain. But yeah, it's ROH. For all we know, this is they've got some plan for Lio Rush or something. And then eventually we got the Roderick Strong and Mark Briscoe match for the ROH World title, which I am very much assuming it's just going to stick around at Mark Briscoe. But I'd be down for Roderick Strong winning it if they want to go in that direction.
I would be very down for Roderick Strong winning it. I think Mark Briscoe should just be a full-time AEW guy at this point.
I'd say both these two should be full AEW guys. They're just tied to they're just tied to Ring of Honor due to legacy. But I think Briscoe will retain. I mean, the story is right too if you do want to change it because you can tell the story of the fact that Briscoe's just come out of Blood and Guts. He's going to be exhausted. He's going to be tired. He's going to be hurt off the back of that. So if Roderick was to take advantage of that to get the victory, then that would make sense. But I think that you need to have Briscoe retain. They haven't found the right person to beat him yet.
Do you have anybody in mind that you think will be the right person?
No.
To be clear, it's not that you said no. It was the pause.
Yeah.
And the elongated.
Well, I was thinking that because I think I know the person that's going to beat the person that beats Mark Briscoe.
Who's that?
EJ Nduka.
I thought you were going to say EJ Nduka.
I just saw the match at Ring of Honor this past week, and Yeah, he's essentially he is Ring of Honor's Obafemi.
That was Ezra Judge in NXT, Tony.
He's done a lot more on the indies since then, to the point that I keep hearing his name popping up as one of these guys to like really pay attention to. And
I mean, he's been signed for AEW pretty much since he left at WWE.
Well, that's
he's just
like...
Well, he's been signed with them for a long time. It's been at least a couple of years, I think, that he's been signed with AEW. He's just been working in the independent circuit and doing dark matches and stuff.
And AEW has this thing, especially lately, of like, no, we're going to sit on you. We're going to pay you. And we're going to wait. And when we're ready, we'll debut you. And that's what they did with EJ on this past Thursday's Ring of Honor. And he could be a great Ring of Honor champion. If Ring of Honor wanted to go that route of being like the developmental show, that's fine. I need this brand to get an identity.
I mean, ROH and NXT are pretty much kind of equivalents at this point.
But they're not, because like,
it's just that it happens to be a brand that was its own big thing prior to that.
Like, I really hope they start to refocus around Ring of Honor, but it's been like 2 years and I keep saying that.
Any other thoughts about ROH before we go back to Dynamite Blood and Guts?
Should be a fun show. They always deliver. The AEW Ring of Honor show's always fun to some degree, and I'll have a good time watching it.
Since the AEW takeover of Ring of Honor, they've never done a bad pay-per-view. So I think I'm still going to very much, even if I'm not like super excited for many of the matches, I think that I'm going to very much enjoy most of the show.
I will be tangentially paying attention in some ways, and in other ways not. So, going back to Dynamite, the other things that we hadn't talked about before, we already talked about like the American Championship and all. Chris Jericho retained the FTW title over Minoru Suzuki, choppy over and over and over again. Jericho bleeds. I was tuning out of the match. I wasn't really fond of it, but then again, some people love it. They
chopped for a long time.
It was a long time, a lot of chopping. It's like what, like prior to, during, and a little bit after a commercial break or something.
Yeah. Jericho broke his finger somehow.
Probably chopping. Not surprised about that outcome. Yeah, I didn't imagine Suzuki would win that title. Not surprised about Britt Baker beating Hikaru Shida. A little bit surprised though about afterward. That resulted afterward with Mercedes Moné coming out and saying no to Britt Baker's challenge for a match at All In, and then immediately just going into Camille beating up Britt Baker. So Camille makes her debut. They are referring to her as just Camille, but they're going with the Brickhouse as a nickname rather than like Camille Brickhouse as her name or so. I like the idea of her being her like heavy and her bodyguard-esque role, but I don't know if they needed to wait this long for that to just be how that happened.
I think it was fine for what it was. I think this is the most interested I've been in whatever Mercedes is doing, and hopefully they start to find their groove with her.
I mean, I think it was a good time to do it. I think that you pick a big show like Blood and Guts to have this moment take place on, so ideally you're going to have more eyes on what's happening. And yeah, you had to wait until Mercedes was like full-blown heel before bringing in a Diesel-like character to be her bodyguard. And yeah, this is a good introductory thing for Camille. Gets to utilize her best like in-ring assets, which is like she's a power wrestler. She can definitely just throw people around while Mercedes can just be preening in the background before she has to lace up the boots and get in the ring herself. So yeah, I think this can well, what I immediately got out of that as well, just from my own personal taste, is that yeah, it's very good that Camille debuted, but it also means that yeah, Jamie Hate's coming back soon.
Kind of seems like that would be the case, right? She needs a little bit of backup, so it'll be Baker and Hayter against Mercedes and Camille, and maybe that'll happen at All In or at All Out or something.
Yeah, I can imagine like you do the All In match. Jody Hayter comes out at the end of it after like Mercedes retains to help out. Then they have the tag team match at All Out, and then you have Hayter versus Mercedes at Full Gear or something. Or Wrestle Dream, whichever one would come up next.
I think it's Full Gear. I think
Wrestle Dream in October.
Wait, it's Wrestle Dream, and then what's the one in December?
It's Grand Slam, then Wrestle Dream, then Full Gear, then World's End.
World's End is the one that's I'm thinking of. Yeah, hard to keep track of some of these things anymore, especially while I'm doing TV coverage while we're doing this. Yeah, I mean, All Out's not that far away from All In, so if they wanted to kind of like rush it, they could do that. But at least they're setting up some stuff for Grand Slam, because we know on the Rampage episode we had the Royal Rampage, and we know who is going to get a title shot for the AEW Championship then, which a little bit of a spoiler if you don't want to wait until the end of that, but backtracking a little bit more, Pac won his match against Boulder, or Mariah May won her match against Caitlin Alexis, what's her name? And the Blood and Guts match was predominantly the rest of the whole thing. How did you guys feel about Blood and Guts? Because I'm seeing a lot of reactions that are very much, it ended with a whimper. I'm seeing a lot of, this didn't live up to the expectations. And then I'm also seeing a lot of, oh my God, crazy spot, crazy spot, crazy spot. This was absolutely amazing.
Those are both the correct approaches to this. It wasn't my personal favorite Blood and Guts, but I understand people like chaos.
I think it was the Blood and Guts the most closely resembled a WWE War Games match.
Yes.
Not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. I think the crowd really helped it. I think the crowd was super into everything. I think one major thing I'll take away from this match is that it completely revitalized the Acclaimed.
Yeah.
I think it saved the Acclaimed as an act. Not like as an act in total, just like, oh, they were dead in the water, but they feel so much closer to where they were at their peak now than they were beforehand, which is a great thing. I think having Anthony Bowens use an actual pair of scissors in the match and doing a lot of spots with Jack Perry was a great way of doing that. I think Jack Perry was like the star of the match in terms of just like an individual. I think that they clearly built him up as a valiant fighter, like someone who believes in the elite vision for AEW, and just he was never going to quit, even when Darby Allin did pour gasoline all over him. It was Matt Jackson that was the one that quit and gave him that title match at All In for the TNT title, but Perry was basically egging Allin on to set him on fire if he had to. So yeah, I think they're saying this up Perry. He'll still be heel for a while, but they're putting the seat in place for him to eventually have a big babyface run. And then the other main things as well is you have Paige and Swerve getting to each other. I thought they both had great showings as well, and you continue to feel off the animosity. But they also spent time in the match dedicating to Okada and Hangman getting into each other's face, and so I presume that's the match at All. It's going to be Hangman versus Okada for the Continental Championship.
You're going in that direction. I was still thinking that they were going to go Hangman against Swerve.
How?
Well, yeah, they can't, because Danielson's got the world title match at
I thought you said All Out.
No. Well, no, I said All In.
All In. I thought you said All Out. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, All In, yeah.
If I did say All Out, that was my fault, but like I meant All In.
I probably heard you wrong.
Yeah, so Okada versus Paige for the Continental Championship.
I'm down for that. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Because I think they're doing a good job of treading the line with Paige of he's a heel when it comes to Swerve, but fact of the matter is that his hatred for Swerve is completely justified. So he's really a babyface, and he keeps coming out of the babyface tunnel as well because he knows he's a babyface. So he can definitely play babyface against the Elite and be like AEW's. I don't know if even anti-hero is the right way of describing it, but the guy that just sits in the middle, like he isn't aligned to the Elite, and all his kind of evil intentions on the heel side are just all associated with taking everything from Swerve. So yeah, and I think they should save that match for a while. I don't think they should have that match until at the very earliest late this year, if not stretch it out into next year, because I think you can do that. But yeah, they're clearly setting the seeds of that match happening, and that can give Page and Okada something to do while Danielson faces Swerve for the title instead.
Yep, that's pretty much where I'm going as well. It was a bit much for me in terms of the shenanigans. Like, why the fuck is Jeff Jarrett there? And coming from the guy who likes Jeff Jarrett, why is, we didn't need all that. And anyone who's like, oh, it ended with a whimper. I'm sorry, did you need to see a guy get set on fire, you sickos?
I think a lot of them really did want to see him get set on fire, and that they
yeah, because he has been set on fire. Because he got set on fire at one of the last shows they did.
Get help, okay?
Well, I don't think. I think that there's going to be a bit of an issue with the AEW approach of it, which I think is fair because it's the way to differentiate from the War Games is the submission or surrender aspect of it. Like you have to give up. I think they benefited by actually using microphones this time, which helped out, rather than just like them saying it in the crowd, and then the bell just ringing in the crowd having to react to it. So I think that every Blood and Guts match, to an extent, is going to have a bit of a I would say a whimper type finish, but it's always going to be a bit anticlimactic. I think you kind of have to enjoy the meat of the match, and then the ending is just what the ending is, really.
I think that a lot of the people that were thinking that it ended with a whimper, the idea was probably that they just did want to see somebody get set on fire. But I do think that there's a little bit to it, to just the mechanics of it, where like I guess it wasn't like quick enough, kind of. I don't know how to like really express like the pacing of it, where they threatened to Darby Allin threatened to set Jack Perry on fire, and enough time had passed of like, oh, and I want you to give me this title shot at All In. Oh, and no, you have to say quit, and then Jackson stepping in to do it. I think it needed to be snappier for some people. I didn't really mind it, but I think that some people were probably thinking that it dragged. And to me, that's not enough to be like, okay, that drags a little bit, so let me just say that the whole match is garbage or something, because a lot of people are very much just, it has to be that or nothing. If it's not the best thing in the world, then it's the worst thing in the world, and I think that that's just incredibly stupid. But that approach, I do think, is probably something that a lot of people had out there that maybe they didn't necessarily love enough of the other stuff that had happened prior to compensate for it. But I thought it was a fun match. I liked how they did all the staple gun stuff. I liked that they did the I would never want to do it typed of spot with the thumbtacks in the mouth. Like, I had fun. So to me, it was a thumbs up. But suddenly, after that, they were recording Rampage, and despite going through that match, Darby Allin goes ahead and he wins Royal Rampage. So we're going to get Darby Allin fighting for the AEW World Championship at Grand Slam against whoever is holding that belt at that time. And that could factor in when we give our predictions for All In and All Out and all that. But I sort of assume at this point that it's not going to be Danielson, that it'll end up being Swerve retaining at All In. I assumed that was going to be the case anyway, but then I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some kind of a setup here that I'm not seeing, because Grand Slam happens around a time that they do tend to do some pretty important things, but it's happening after All Out. And if All Out can be somewhere like they switch it up and it's like Hangman. Maybe it's Hangman against Darby.
Well, I think Danielson's winning the title
against Swerve It All In.
Yeah. So I think that now that, because I presumed that Danielson was going to win the title at All In, and then he was going to face Darby at Wrestle Dream, and Darby would win the World Championship there. Now there's going to be happening on Grand Slam. I don't think that Darby's going to beat him for the title. I think you still do Darby versus Danielson on that show, and you just have a great match and Danielson gets the victory. Now I'm more convinced with the idea that people are positive that you have just Swerve face Danielson at Wrestle Dream in a rematch and Swerve wins the title back. It's taking place in it will take place in the Washington area like it did last year.
Yeah,
so yeah, and they're both people from that area of the country, so it could be like a bit more of a real passing of the torch moment.
I still think the passing of the torch should have been with Darby, but as long as we get the match and we get Danielson as champion, I'll be good with whatever happens.
As far as I'm aware, that's all the hot tags that I had written down.
Well, there's one more. There's a late breaking one from both PW Insider and Fightful. Beth Phoenix is no longer under WWE contract, and that would mean a lot more if Adam Copeland was healthy.
You got anything in mind? You think you're going to pop up on AEW and wrestle, or?
I think so.
Is there any notifications about that?
No specific notification, but I would think so.
Actually, they just need to move a lot of pieces together until you can finally get that Adam Copeland and Beth Phoenix versus Adam Cole and Britt Baker match, probably.
That'd be fun.
But yeah, there's a lot of things that would need to go in the meantime for that to make logical sense to happen. But yeah, I assume they'll try and get one Beth Phoenix match in AEW if they can get away with it.
I mean, if they can, that'd be great because it's Beth Phoenix. So it's like, yeah, you're not going to turn that down the option if you have the opportunity. Yeah. Sorry for my frazzled brain trying to do coverage for like 12 different posts while we're doing this and my mood at the beginning of this. But that's the episode of the hot tags for anybody that was curious if we were going to do that this week. We did. At least
we did.
I'm hoping that the recording is working well. And that this is going to be uploaded. And if it ends up not being on there, nobody's going to know that we recorded this. But if you're hearing this, then that's the case. We have some plans for next week that are revolving around doing our typical SummerSlam predictions and the post show, which hopefully will not have the same kind of issues with Skype and OBS. But round of hot tags coming up next week too, where we can talk about anything else that happens in the meantime, any other kind of TV talk or any kind of breaking news that comes out of the stories that we talked about for this, or new things to pop up too. Leave your thoughts in the comments below about any of these topics and more, and give us your thoughts on the pay-per-view when it comes to ROH Death Before Dishonor, because we have no plans to do a post show for that whatsoever. It's not happening anymore. And the hot tags next week, we might end up like talking about anything important that happened for that, Battle of the Belts and all. Hopefully you enjoy it if you do watch any of these things. I always want people to have fun doing that. And keep in mind, of course, that there's not only the Smark Out Moment stuff, but there's also the Fanboys Anonymous stuff. If anything happens there, you'll see that on all those different feeds. Never get a chance to do anything with that anymore, but such is life. And I do think that we might end up coming back around at some point to talk about the Olympics thing again with the hot tags, not the hot tags, with the Darkcast. If we do, of course, you got to be on the Darkcast here to be able to get access to that. But in general, just go on the link tree on amangotree.com and start liking all those different accounts and following those things and subscribing and all that good stuff. And make sure you're following not just me, but also Rob and Callum.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my work on Fightful and movieweb.com.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday over on smarkamoment.com. And then you can also check out the Fantasy League, also at smarkamoment and www.fantasyleague.com to see how all of our teams are doing and who's picking up points on the road to SummerSlam.
You still in the lead?
I haven't quantified this week's points, but as far as I'm aware, I think I'm just about still in the lead.
Ooh.
Oh damn! I lost the lead. Fuck. Boo.
Well, stay tuned for that, everybody. Stay tuned for another episode of Smack Talk, hopefully coming up soon, and we will see you then. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.